Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Daily Coin. My name is Rory, and today is Wednesday, December the 9th, 2015. And the Gold Antitrust Action Committee, lovingly known as GATA, was organized in the fall of 1998 to expose, oppose, and litigate against collusion to control the price and supply of gold and related financial instruments. And I'm very pleased and very honored to be speaking with the Secretary Treasurer of GATA, Mr. Chris Powell. How are you doing today, Chris?
Good to be here, Rory.
Well, I'm certainly glad that you're here. And the past several months, Chris, we have seen one attack after another on both gold and silver. And the COMEX is almost out of gold with something like 4.1 tons available for delivery. And what are the implications of the COMEX getting this low with their registered gold? And is this a problem, or what could happen from here?
Well, us gold bugs have been watching this increasing leverage in the futures markets for a long time, and some people would like to believe it means that the price manipulation is really under a lot of strain right now, since there's supposedly so little gold available to back the claims in the futures contracts. I'm not sure about the significance of this. I mean, I'd like to believe that the scheme is running out of metal to suppress prices with, but they always seem to be able to come up with metal at the last minute when they need it. And in fact, if you believe as GATA does, that central bank gold is very much in play in the price suppression. I mean, they could be pulling gold out of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York's vaults, custodial gold, to bail out the COMEX at contract delivery points. And unless you know how much metal is really available to the central banks and, through them and the bullion banks to the futures market, you don't know when this is going to end. And if central banks are ready to deploy their gold down to the last ounce, this could go on for a long time.
Okay. And with China now reporting their monthly gold acquisitions, and just this past week, they announced their latest trove of about close to 21 tons of gold. And I presume that that's not coming from the COMEX. I mean, where would something like that be coming from?
Well, that's a very good question, and it's a very big secret as to exactly how the People's Bank of China is sourcing its gold. Our consultant, Cruz Jansen, is very convinced that the People's Bank of China is not sourcing its gold through the Shanghai Gold Exchange. He's pretty confident that China is getting this through the London bullion market. We don't know. And we can only suspect. I mean, I think Cruz Jansen's suspicions are pretty good. But, excuse me, Brian Sachecki of the Perth Mint today wrote a commentary about these new monthly announcements by the People's Bank of China about its increase in gold reserves, and he has calculated that this acquisition by the People's Bank of China is accelerating in recent months. Certainly, the announcements suggest an accelerating acquisition of gold by China, but again, here, I don't know how much credibility these announcements should be given. We know that for 5 years or so, China reported no change at all
Exactly.
in its gold reserves when it was surreptitiously acquiring gold, and then all of a sudden it announced a big increase in its gold reserves. So we know that the official reporting of gold is not reliable. For that reason, we also know the official reporting of gold is not reliable because of the secret 1999 staff report of the International Monetary Fund, to which the central banks report their gold reserves. That secret report, which we obtained a copy of, shows that the IMF allows central banks to conceal their gold swaps and leases and to report leased and swapped gold as if it's still in the vault. And that, according to the secret staff report, central banks are allowed to do this precisely to conceal their interventions in the gold and currency markets. So if a central bank tells the IMF that it's got 1,000 tons of gold, it may have 200 tons in the vault, and it may have 800 tons swapped or leased for market rigging purposes. So that's another reason why the official gold reserve data is not to be relied on. I have often argued that the location and disposition of central bank gold reserves are secrets far more sensitive than the location and disposition of nuclear weapons, because nuclear weapons can only destroy the world, but since gold is the primary mechanism of the rigging of the currency markets and related markets, it's also the most valuable object for exploiting the world. If you want to destroy the world, that's one thing. If you want to exploit the world, what you have to do is control the currency markets, and gold is necessary to that.
Well, that's I'd never thought of it that way, Chris. I mean, and that ties into part of what you were saying before when Dave Kranzler and I interviewed you a few months ago, as far as the sovereignty, our human sovereignty is directly impacted by this gold manipulation, and I want to touch on that here in just a minute. That's very unnerving. Earlier today, Rob Kirby was discussing the Exchange Stabilization Fund that is a function of the U.S. Treasury. And this was an interview on USA Watchdog with Greg Hunter. And what role, if any, does the ESF, the Exchange Stabilization Fund, play in the overall manipulation scheme?
Well, we don't know exactly what the ESF is doing, Rory, because it's exempt from freedom of information law, and it's exempt even from reporting to Congress what it's really doing. All we know about the Exchange Stabilization Fund is what the law authorizes it to do, and
which is whatever they want to do.
Yeah, and if anybody can find out about what the law authorizes the Exchange Stabilization Fund to do simply by going to the Treasury Department's internet site and finding the ESF page, you'll find that the Exchange Stabilization Fund was created by the Gold Reserve Act of 1934, and that as amended through the years since then, the ESF has been authorized to trade not only in gold and hypothecations in gold, which was the language in the original statute, but its powers have been expanded so that it is authorized to trade secretly not only in gold, but in any financial instruments whatsoever, and to do so in secret. That is, while we'd like to call market rigging criminal in a metaphorical sense, as a matter of law in the United States, the U.S. government, through the Treasury Department and the Exchange Stabilization Fund, is fully authorized to intervene secretly in any market at all and to rig any market at all. As Charles Peters, who was a longtime journalist and editor of the Washington Monthly magazine, would often say, the scandal is not what's illegal. The scandal is what's perfectly legal. And the U.S. government, while we preach free markets to the world, is fully authorized by law to rig every market in the world. Now, I can't prove that it is active in any particular market today because it functions in secret, but you can look at the statute and you can see that the statute contemplates the U.S. government secretly rigging any market in the world, and if they aren't doing it, they're certainly contemplating it.
So we have a central bank, the Federal Reserve, which reports to no one, is not allowed to, it doesn't have to share any information with the American people.
Well,
and we have
it tries to withhold as much information as it can, but the Fed is a creation of Congress, and
exactly.
There are moves in Congress recently and even today to extract more information out of the Fed. I'm the first to acknowledge that the Fed serves the interests only of the financial class and the banking industry, but the American people, through their elected representatives, could get control of the Federal Reserve anytime they were so inclined to, rise up and to hold this institution to account. And since this institution is largely controlling the value of all capital, labor, goods, and services in the world, it's a more important part of government than any other agency. So I hope that people do rise up and demand accountability from it soon.
That's what we need to do. We need to rise up and demand accountability. And I want to come back to China for just a second. And with China now beginning to report their monthly gold acquisitions that we were just speaking of, how will this impact the Western banking cabal's ability to continue their silver and gold suppression of not only the exchange rates, but the quantity scheme, or is it completely irrelevant?
Well, if China is really acquiring gold on an accelerated schedule, of course it will put a huge strain on the gold price suppression scheme. And I believe that China is doing it because there has been much commentary in the government-controlled Chinese press in recent years about the Western gold price suppression scheme and about how control of gold control of the gold price is necessary to support of the dollar as the world reserve currency. This was all explained in great detail, the centrality of gold to the control of the markets, by the minutes of a meeting that was held in the office of the U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger in April 1974. These minutes really have been posted on the internet site of the historian of the State Department, and for safety's sake, they've been copied onto Ghana's internet site. But in this meeting, a couple of Kissinger's assistants explained to him why it is crucial to the United States to discourage the Europeans from obtaining more gold and monetizing it or treating it more in a monetary way, because the assistants to Kissinger explained to him that whoever has the most gold can control its valuation. And if you control the valuation of gold, you control the valuation of all the other currencies. I imagine, since Ghana knows this, has found these records on the State Department's internet site and has publicized them, I imagine that the Chinese government knows it, the Russian government knows it. I imagine really most central banks know it. In fact, if I had to bet, I would bet my life that virtually every major central bank in the world right now is a participant in the gold price suppression scheme, preparing for some sort of international currency reset, whose timetable has not been made known to us. But China certainly knows that control of gold and control of the gold price is control of the valuation of all currencies. And as those minutes of the meeting in Kissinger's office in April 1974 show, if you've got the most gold, you can control its valuation. And since gold is potentially an international reserve currency, it certainly was for a long time, and it could be again. If you're controlling the gold price, you're controlling the price of all currencies. And if you can control the price of all currencies, you run the world.
Doesn't gold really play a central role even today in the background in some capacity in currencies? I mean,
well, of course, it's considered the ultimate currency. It's the currency without counterparty risk. That's why it is so so dangerous to all the other currencies. A free trading gold market is really the mechanism of human liberty. A lot of free markets and individuals could determine the value of things in the world, and value would not be assigned by government. My God, individuals as sovereign actors on planet Earth, this couldn't possibly be permitted by any country that has a central bank that is rigging markets. Central banks know very well the power of gold. Really, gold is the nuclear weapon of currencies, and that's why they do their best to sit on it. Though every so often they have to do some sort of currency reset because they've inflated their currencies so badly, and they've put a great strain on the gold supply, and they do a revaluation. There was revaluations of gold and currencies done in 1968 and throughout the 1970s, and I imagine one will be done again. I suspect the next one will probably be far more substantial than the previous ones, because currencies have been inflated by a far greater degree, and because the gold supply has been inflated with imaginary gold through derivatives to a really an unprecedented degree. It would not surprise me to see a revalued gold price in the thousands of dollars per ounce. In fact, I expect it. I don't know if I'm going to live long enough to see it, but there will be from time to time these international currency resets, which are essentially upward revaluations of gold, and the central banks will renew their gold price suppression scheme at a much higher and more sustainable level.
Well, from everything that I've read and the research that I've done, everything kind of points towards a time frame between 2020 and 2025, as far as people, really smart people like Jim Rickards, who is an insider of insiders. How can we get individuals, Chris, to understand what gold means to them as far as their human sovereignty that you were just speaking of? What does it mean?
It's a very complicated issue, and to get people to understand complicated things as the national economy is declining and the world economy is declining, as the gap between rich and poor grows, and life gets more and more difficult for ordinary people. Well, it's very hard. For most people, it's all they can do just to make it from day to day with their jobs and their families and whatever problems they have. This is a very complicated and sophisticated issue, and of course, news organizations, mainstream news organizations, don't help at all. This is a prohibited topic among mainstream news organizations, so it's very hard to get people to understand the mechanisms of what are essentially mechanisms of enslavement. But we try at GATA to explain these, at least on our internet site and in our dispatches, and to maintain an archive of the most important documents, and to explain to people this really isn't crazy stuff. This is stuff that has come up before. We imagine the looting of occupied Europe during World War II by the Nazis to have been mainly a matter of the SS going into banks and museums and businesses with bayonets on the rifles and just taking the money and the property out, and a certain amount of that happened. But if you read the November 1943 monthly intelligence letter of the U.S. War Department, which was an analysis of Nazi currency policy in occupied Europe, you find that the primary mechanism of the looting of occupied Europe during World War II by the Nazis was their rigging of the currency markets. They changed exchange rates. They got control of central banks and changed exchange rates between the domestic currency and the Reichsmark. They took gold away. They prohibited the use of gold, the possession of gold. They issued an occupation currency, which was spendable only in the occupied country and was invalid in Germany. And the result of all this currency market rigging was to arrange the flow of production so that everything produced flowed out of occupied Europe and into Nazi Germany, and nothing flowed back. This is described in even more detail in the 2005 history of Nazi Germany, written by a German journalist and historian at the University of Frankfurt named Gautzali. His book is titled Hitler's Beneficiaries. There's really a chapter in there about currency market rigging as being the basis of the Nazi looting of occupied Europe and World War II. There was starvation and privation in occupied Europe, largely because the Nazis controlled the currency system. All production flowed into Nazi Germany, and there was nothing left for the occupied countries. Now, for the 5 or so years of occupation in Europe, Nazi Germany ran a hell of a trade deficit, but they controlled the currency market, so they could get away with it. Now, who else is running a hell of a trade deficit today, and who else is operating the world reserve currency? Well, of course, it's the United States. Now, I'm not saying that in every respect the United States is running Nazi policies against the world, but insofar as we are controlling the currency markets and we're rigging them and rigging the gold price and forcing really the dollar on the world as the world reserve currency, we are very much following what Nazi Germany did and occupied Europe during World War II. Now, I think the good news today is that the world is becoming aware of this.
Yes.
And there are moves to change the system. I don't know exactly when it will change, and it will be good for our country too, because when there is a change, we get our markets back. We get our freedom back. We get some transparency and government back. We, I think, become much more productive as a nation when we are restored to a market system and market prices, and we can see what people really value. We get some liberty and individual freedom of action back. So, I don't want the United States to be leading the world by rigging the currency markets and forcing our currency on the rest of the world and, running huge trade deficits. I want us to lead the world by example, with freedom and free markets. And I think when we get this currency reset, when there are free markets, we get our free markets back.
We can only hope. And when you were talking about what was going on in Nazi Germany and in Europe during World War II, all I could think was that's exactly what's happening right now. I mean, and the United States, as you pointed out, is doing exactly what they were doing. I mean, down to the letter. I mean, and so it's...
Well, people just
really
don't understand that currency market manipulation, currency market rigging is the primary mechanism of imperialism. And
Yes.
Not just today. It's been that way for a long time. And it simply can't be talked about. I mean, I imagine here in the United States it may be considered unpatriotic to talk about it. I don't know why this cannot be reported in other nations, particularly developing nations, commodity-producing nations, which are especially being exploited by it. But all we can do is what we're doing now, and at least lay it out on our internet site in our dispatches and clamor about it to whoever wants to hear about it. I know people in other countries are occasionally listening to us. We know from the WikiLeaks cables that we're translating Chinese news stories through the State Department and the U.S. Embassy in Beijing. The Chinese government knows all about this. We know from a speech that the deputy chairman of the Bank of Russia gave to the London Bullion Market Association and to its Moscow meeting in 2004 that the Russian government knows all about this. The only words of English in that Russian central bank official speech back in 2004 were Gold Antitrust Action Committee. And I don't know how the hell they found out about us, because to the best of our knowledge, we had never had any contact with anybody in Russia. So I'm sure that every major central bank in the world knows what's going on with gold price suppression and its purposes. And I'm pretty confident that at least Russia and China are mobilizing against it. But it wouldn't surprise me if really all the major central banks are coordinating new arrangements to be brought into force, at some point in the future.
That's my feeling on it as well, Chris, is that there is a major play going on behind the scenes with the different major players, China, Russia, possibly India, the United States, all in collusion, trying to figure out what the next move is.
To confirm this, it would not be hard for news organizations to do this. In the first place, GATA has produced so many documents, official statements that are available on our internet site. But quite beyond that, if you want to know what's happening in gold, all you have to do is call up your central bank or any central bank you're interested in, ask them a few specific questions about their involvement in the gold market. If you ask specific enough questions, you just get the door slammed in your face. And after a while, even the dullest journalist may begin to realize, they're doing something here they don't want us to know about.
Exactly.
Now, why is that? Well, if you look through the historical records, you find out exactly why they don't want people to know about it. It's because they're rigging markets. And if people know that a market is rigged, then you can't rig the market anymore because people won't play in it.
Right. Well, Chris, I've taken up quite a bit of your time, and I just want to.
I thought I was taking up your time.
No, not at all. I do. I want to commend you on your continued efforts, you and your partner Bill Murphy, and the work that you guys do. It is invaluable for all of humanity, really. And one last question, and you've kind of hit on it, but I want to be a little bit more specific. And why do you continue fighting the good fight to expose these criminals and their criminal activity?
Well, if you'd asked me a few weeks ago, I would have said that we think this is an important cause. That really it's something done in defense of humanity and free markets, free people, are really in defense of our own country, returning our own country to its principles. But I think today I'm just doing it for spite. Because I wouldn't want, the bastards to think that nobody was on to them.
Oh, well, I hope that you continue fighting.
Well, it's my life now, Rory, so I'm stuck. It's another reason why I hope this reset comes soon. I'd like to move on to flying saucers or something.
That's what I tell my wife all the time. It's like, do you think I want to do something else. I would like nothing better than to go back to New Orleans and spend a lot of time in the casino, but instead I feel compelled to stay here and continually report on the criminality that is being shoved down our throats and the criminality has just become so blatant and so in your face. It's
Yeah, well,
incredible.
the resistance is growing too, Rory. You're a
Yes,
part of it, and I'm grateful for that. But there's a slowly growing realization about the pervasive corruption and even evil in our institutions right now, and I think we're obliged to, try to get the country back to its principles, because if this country and its principles go down, there's really not going to be much left of the world.
not really, not much left at all. And they're doing everything that they can to strip it as quick as possible. But like you pointed out, there's a great many people that are waking up on a daily basis, and I'm very grateful for that. And I just hope that they can get up to speed a lot quicker and bring more people with them, because we need everybody. We need each and every one of you, and it's just that simple. But we've been speaking with Mr. Chris Powell, who is the Secretary Treasurer of GATA, and you can find all of his great work, and you can make donations as well at GATA.org, and that's GATA.org. And Chris, is there anything you'd like to leave the audience with?
Oh, I do like people to think that individuals make a difference, Rory. I've seen enough examples of it in my own experience to know that even one person can make a difference. So don't feel overwhelmed. Don't feel forsaken.
Don't sell yourself short. You're
exactly.
important. You're important.
It's something everybody can participate in. You can always help a little, and eventually, I think the right will prevail.
We can only hope, and we can not just hope. We can push forward and make it happen, individually and collectively. So, but Chris, with that, I will let you get back to your afternoon. I know you've got some writing to do, so it's been a great pleasure, and I hope that we can do this again in the not too distant future.
You know where to find me. Thank you, Rory.
All right, Chris. Thank you. Bye-bye.